to know? We've got all this time, so stop wasting mine. We've got all this time. How am I supposed to know? To know.
this music out. Whoops.
Party music.
Partying. All right. Welcome, everybody, to episode number 12 of Irresponsibly Long. I'm your host, Steven, here as always with my esteemed colleague, Eric Johansson.
Yeah, we made Nick just came by to double check that the mics are plugged in.
We think the mics are working
Please
today.
let us know if you can hear us.
Sorry about last week, everybody. You know what you signed up for. This is not a high-tech podcast. What up to everybody in the chat? I see Tunsky, Dan, Ali. Personal Evolution is back. What's up, dude?
Welcome back.
He's back and ready to buy some hood. Looks like.
Damn.
He's loading up. We're definitely going to talk about that. Definitely going to talk about crypto markets because we have blood in the streets right now. It is ugly out there.
Yeah, I saw in the Discord you said, fuck this, I'm going to play pickleball.
I did.
You okay?
That was a great decision. Yeah, I definitely got to. Sometimes you get in those like trading holes and then you just like, you start on your big picture and your long-term thesis, and then like 7 hours into your day, you're just like on the 15-second chart, and
That's too much, man.
You're tilting.
It's too much. I feel like I had this thought recently where it's like, this is actually going back to late December, when I kind of got into these long puts, and I was just ready to take a little breather, play defense. I was like, there's times when you want to be like staring at the shit all the time and really be active. And there's times when you want to like just kind of play pickleball. And I felt like maybe, for sure the last 2 weeks were kind of like pickleball time. And now maybe it's time to get back into it. But that's hopefully what we talk about today.
Yeah. Yeah, you definitely missed the move, right?
Well,
the move happened.
Are you talking about the move down?
The move down.
Yeah.
And like, now people, they kind of get in this panic mode where they're like, I got to buy the dip, or, oh, it's going to go lower, I got to get in short. And it's, And oftentimes you just take a step back and just let the chart develop a little bit.
Let the candles come through.
Let the candles come through and do their thing. Let the whales, buy or sell, see who's in control. Take a breather. I think there's some interesting stuff happening right now on the Bitcoin chart. We're going to take a look at that in a little bit, but I don't want to talk about crypto just yet because I think that's going to just set us on a path.
Yeah, we'll ease our way into the crypto
we will
stuff.
never return. So let's start off today in TardFi, I guess.
Yeah, let's do that.
I want to first. We like to go back sometimes and talk about things that we told you to buy or sell. Well, actually, we never tell you to buy or anything. We told you that we were buying or selling.
Good catch, sir.
Yeah, God.
Please.
We don't have a lawyer, but
Please don't get me fucking banned.
If we did, man, yeah, it's my fault. I don't know if they'll accept that as an excuse. We're blast from the past. Verizon, VZ.
Oh my God.
We're talking about this bad boy.
Well,
God, when was this? Like, this was over the summer, right?
Oh, well, you see that last candle at the bottom? That's when I was talking about.
Oh, okay. What a coincidence. What a coincidence. No, but you were definitely shilling this thing to me. I forgot if it was on this podcast or the Alfalfa.
I think it was on
podcast.
Alfalfa. We hadn't even started this one.
Yeah, because I think it was like sometime in July. I remember the price being like $34 or something.
Well, that's even higher than when I got it. But yeah, I got in there at like 30 and change.
So you bottom ticked it. Congratulations.
Yeah, dude. So this is. Let me just go back.
Well,
to the
we're at 42.29 now. Not a huge move in crypto land, but in the land of stonks, especially in the land of stonks like this.
Yeah, these are stodgy stonks that give you yield, cash flow.
Yeah. So we're up, probably like 30, 40%.
Right.
Off the bottom. So
right.
Nice little move.
And
you feeling good?
Yeah. The reason why you buy a stock like this is not even for the price move, right? Like, so it has appreciated 30-some%, but that's not why I'm interested in this. Like, why I was shilling this is for the yield. And at the time that was yielding 8.5%. and that's pretty juicy, right? Like,
Yeah.
8.5% is nice.
It's good. It's a good yield.
And I think like when I see that, right, a lot of times you see these high dividend yields and you think this must be a fucking scam. This is gonna rug. They're gonna cut the dividend.
Yep.
And you're stuck. But these guys have a 17-year track record of consecutive dividend increases. They're generating positive cash flow. They pay out only, like 50-some% of their earnings as dividends. So there's plenty of room for this dividend to continue increasing. And the reason why I like this particular type of stock is because when you can get it at a cheap price like that, it can become like a forever hold for you. You can just tuck it away. I don't even worry about the price. It went up to $40 or whatever. I think the price can go higher. I don't care. I'm just in it for the dividend yield forever. And, like they're going to continue increasing that dividend over time as they have for 17 consecutive years. And, my cost is fixed. It's at $30 or whatever. But the dividend increases. So I'm going to be looking at a double-digit yield moving forward, over time. And that's why you own a stock like this. I did a similar thing a couple of years ago on ExxonMobil, back when Exxon dipped down to $40 a share. Now it's at 100, and it was yielding similarly like 8% at the time. So I'm capturing a double-digit yield on Exxon, and I'm just going to hold that forever. This is like the Knicker-Bonnie framework. You just collect your checks.
Mailbox money.
Mailbox money.
Not even mailbox. It's like email money.
Yeah, right. It just shows up in the brokerage, so you don't even have to cash a check.
Man, I could just put my entire net worth into VZ stock, and I would be up 40% in 6 months, and basically retired, collecting. I could just live off my little.
Well, I was actually talking to Nick and his business partner about this, because like it's not really a game that makes sense or like is that enticing when you don't have like a huge bucket to play with. But once you do have like some money that you want to preserve, earning a double-digit yield on like $1 million, for instance, like that becomes like a salary for you, and which you can ultimately retire on or whatever, like that becomes pretty meaningful. And I think transitioning from like growth portfolio to wealth preservation is a topic that people don't really have like that good of a handle on.
Well said, sir. Well said. Excuse me, I just have to move some stuff around here in the production laptop. There we go. So yeah, congrats on that. I don't know how many of our Alfalfa listeners were like, yeah, I got to get me some Verizon stock.
Right. I think a lot of people
there's probably a couple guys out there who are just like, thank you.
Well, I know there's like
anybody in the Discord shout you out?
Well, yeah, they did, but I think they were like using it as a trade. But I know that there's wealth in our Discord, and for that archetype, the people who have already made it to a certain extent, this is the type of trade you should be looking at. But for the people who still need to make it, you want to go for like higher beta, of course, and that's like where we'll focus there too.
Yeah, beautiful stuff. Another blast from the past. We talked about this. I'm pretty sure we talked about this on this show. This was back in October. We talked about Tesla, which is having a hard time this week. I think the stock sold off 13% today. Trading at 182 now. Whew, ugly.
Yeah. What a day this thing had.
My God.
Well, they reported earnings today.
And it did not go well.
No, yeah, it was pretty bad.
Yeah. You got any snippets there?
Yeah, let me read a couple quotes from Elon. First one, I mean, like in these earnings calls, stock can do anything, right? It's typically not even what happened. It's what they're saying in the guidance, like what is probably going to happen going forward. So the revenue and earnings came in lower than expectations, but it was this quote, I think, that really led to this bleed out. He said, Elon said that we may see notably lower growth rate than we achieved in 2023 going forward. That's a problem. He said, our company is currently between two major growth waves. The first one began with the global expansion of the Model 3 and Y platform, And the next one, we believe, will be initiated by the global expansion of the next gen vehicle, which is their truck. Do you believe him?
I mean, I never really believe anything Elon says, to be honest.
What we know for sure is that he's in between two growth waves, and he's claiming for like lower than 2023 growth rates. So that's why the stock sold off.
Pain. Yeah, I remember back in October, Rizzy in the Alfalfa Discord asked me to chart this, and I think I drew this doodle here. I was like, yeah, this looks like it's going to $40 to me. Which at the time, this one was, $250, and then I drew like a scenario where, like, if this happens, it could go up. But yeah, it's kind of playing out. It's kind of playing out like Doodle A so far. I didn't take this trade because I was really, 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 really bullish on stocks at the time.
And
like
Tesla
NASDAQ especially, right?
Right,
And that was correct.
And Tesla tends to be just like a high beta NASDAQ,
Yeah,
right?
I couldn't wrap my head around shorting Tesla and being long the NASDAQ because I don't really like spread trade either. I'm just like, I'm in this for the price appreciation or depreciation, whatever. But yeah, it's like a really interesting testament to the power of price action on a chart. It'll be interesting to see, like, if it still seems inconceivable to me that we could go to like $60, but that is what the lines say. So yeah, trying to wrap my head around a scenario where our coins are way up, Mag 7's way up, and then Tesla is in the toilet, like really in the toilet, like another 80% or so down.
I think, like, so with that being said, it's not inconceivable because what was the acronym before the Mag 7? It was FANG.
Fang.
And Netflix dropped out of
Fang
FANG because Netflix was sort of this exact scenario. And I think we can see that decoupling.
Oh man, this is pain right here. Like, there are so many people who are like big Tesla guys who've basically ridden this thing from nothing and are just conditioned to think it can never go down. I saw there's a couple influencers, like one of them was saying he's selling his house and rolling like $5 million into more Tesla stock. I think that was at, I forget the exact price, but he's probably underwater now.
I feel like every male investor below the age of 40 or 35 like owns this stock.
The masculine urge to sell your house and buy Tesla stock.
Do you remember when you charted this for Rizzy originally that you called for $40 Tesla?
Yeah. That's what it looks like. I mean, the top of that zone is probably about like $60. I think maybe it's 70, 67, but regardless, like way lower. And at the time, yeah, it was $242. So calling for $40 was quite the.
We call that a hot take.
Yeah, I was gonna tweet it and just be one of those things where I was like, well, nobody's gonna remember it, like if it goes up, but then if it doesn't, I could be like, look at that, and people would be like, wow, this guy's so sick. That's like a Twitter trader 101. Just post like 50
just like really
fully redacted takes,
hot calls,
and then a year from now, like a year later, just go through your thing and be like, ooh, that was a good one, and just post that, and people are like, this guy is a god. It's so stupid.
Well, are we gonna get $40 Tesla?
I mean, dude, it looks like it, right? You are in a very high time frame, bearish monthly market structure. Like, that is stuff that plays out over the course of years. So this could be like a 2026, 2027 thing.
So how I would typically play something like that is if you have a hot take, you would like buy a put option on this. But with Tesla, the implied volatility on this particular name is so high that like it actually doesn't work for you to do that. I think you would probably sell the put and just short the shares.
Speaking of implied vol, I think we've got some stuff to talk about, but I'm just going to tease that because I want to cover a couple more things we've been talking about. Just quick checkups. You know, we've been chatting about Hood for a while. You guys know that I've been buying sort of starter bags and DCAing because, like, when I zoom out on this chart, I just see like a really long, beautiful accumulation range, and I see what Coinbase did, and I see this as kind of like a nice little play on a crypto trade, and we haven't really had the actual crypto bull run yet with retail. So, you know, chain link vibes, the whole nine. This thing, this is down so much from the highs too. We've got to be down like 80. We were down like 90 something percent at one point, I think. Stock absolutely took a crap. But you know, some signs of life here in the chart for me when you looked at the weekly, because you had this like really long accumulation range, and then, you know, you had this nice sort of run on the lows followed by like an impulsive move up, which is like a good sign that there's some big money probably buying there, and like they've probably got some fills, and that they're going to want to defend that zone. You know, not guaranteed, but we know we're talking in probabilities. It's a high probability setup. Now, the price ran so much from that zone that I was like, you know, I don't want to go all in here at like $11, $12. So I just like market bought some when I saw it, and now price has kind of come back into my entry. And this to me is like a good example of when to just sort of DCA into a position versus like, oh, this is running, I gotta just market buy and get on.
Well, for people not on the stream, what is the zone you're describing? What price range?
This is a big range. I mean, we're talking like $8 to, you know, $12.75 or so is about the range we're trading in. And I view like the sort of red zone, like, ooh, like this is where you expect a reaction from price, you know, to be basically like 9.85 or so down to $8. So that little order block there, like anything that I can buy in that range, like I'm feeling pretty good about. Now that's a big drop from here, right? Like that could be 20% down. So you got to be cognizant of that. But, you know, we're talking about a stock that could probably, you know, 4 or 5x, like if things get really stupid again. So you're not going to get a 5x in the stock market without without eating like some downside. And to me, like 20-25% downside to possibly get that is pretty nice.
Well, I kind of imagine that you don't even really blink at 25% drawdowns anymore.
I mean, I do if it's like my whole net worth in the trade. That hurts a little bit. Yeah, so there's some good signs of life here. I mean, we had that move, and it looks like we're sort of settling in around like some kind of key moving average areas on the weekly. Got like the 200 MA here, and then I got like the weekly trend. We're above both of those. So kind of zooming in on the 4 hour, I want to just keep seeing some consolidation here, these levels. And even on the 4 hour, we're just kind of sitting above the 200. So it's really nice when you get in a zone and price is just like sitting on the weekly, the daily, and the 4 hour trends just like in your zone. You're like, oh, baby, come on. So, yeah, probably keep buying, although I really want to get greedy, like, you know, sub $10.
Sub $10, I think is happening. I think it's happening. I think it's coming. I think it's coming quite soon. But
yeah, like short term, there is significant momentum to the downside on this stock. Like, there's no reason after these, like, this is like strong impulsive move down from like 1250 or so. There's no reason to think this is just going to go up from here. Like, it's far more likely that we kind of get a little bump up and then actually make new lows from here. But again, I'm trying to think bigger picture with this stuff. So I like it. I like it as a longer term play.
I think Hood is going to be one of my largest buys in 2024. Hood, Coinbase will be as well. But this stock in particular just feels so right.
I'm still watching Zoom too. I mean, we haven't looked at it in a bit, and I haven't really bought anything significant yet, but like similar thing here where it just looks like the stock is clearly bottomed. We have been going sideways now since October of 2022. Like we've recovered a bunch of MAs similar, like a weekly trend, 4-hour trend, daily trend. There's like a lot of interesting stuff happening here. So I probably start DCAing into this one now. I think, and I am long probably about 40% of my position on Snap. We've talked about it a little bit. Do you have any thoughts on Snap?
Sorry, I was still on Zoom. I actually like Zoom.
You like Zoom?
Yeah.
All right, fuck it. Let's go back to Zoom.
Well, this is a good, like, it's a business that exists for a reason. It's like it does things that people need, and it makes money. And this thing's, like you just talked about the lines, the fundamentals are solid. Like, this thing is generating positive cash flow and trades at a very cheap multiple relative to its cohort, like the tech cohort. It's trading at 15 times forward earnings, which is like probably like what Verizon's
Bro, when you
trading
zoom out on this chart, it is spectacular. Look at that.
Okay, so
Dude, the high was $588. We're at $67 right now. That is some crazy.
This is a real company that makes money.
Yeah, it feels like it just kind of got slaughtered with the rest of like this kind of small cap
It was also
tech
the
type companies,
sort of like the COVID unwind. You know, this was like a COVID darling, and then the COVID unwind.
yeah, and then everybody who bought that hype is just like annihilated, and they're selling every bounce, just trying to get out. I mean, this is like what capitulation looks like. And you want to talk about, taking positions in the origin of the move, like that's where we are. Like, this is the zone that gave us.
Hold on, we're trading
580.
below like pre-COVID levels, right? Like, this is fucking insane.
Yeah, it's a good point. Are we? Yeah, we are. Damn. Yeah, this stock in February of 2020 was higher than it is now.
That's insane.
That is insane. That's insane. I like this. I like this for a 2020, 2024 play for sure. Definitely going to add some. Man, we haven't talked about in a bit is Nvidia. I know that you weren't a fan of this thing.
Wait, hold on. No.
What?
This was literally the largest holding in my portfolio for like 8 years.
I know, but then like we were just like, it's getting kind of stupid.
Yeah.
And it's like take some.
Well,
I don't know.
I stupidly took some off the table at like 330 or something, but I still hold quite a bit of it.
Yeah,
I'm a fan.
50% since we were sitting around like, man, this seems kind of above. Just goes to show you that momentum is a bitch.
Yeah, and valuation is not like the driver in any type of like short-term time frame. Like a price being
For sure.
too high can like get even stupider.
Yeah, this is just like a momentum stock. This is
Yeah.
like a stock. This is like the stock of the current zeitgeist,
Yeah.
God, that gave you such a nice entry just using the weekly trend. You just tapped the bottom of it, and then you never had a drawdown. Damn.
What moving average do you like to use for those?
So I use EMAs for trend 13, 25, and 32. And
Okay.
it makes this kind of band. So it gives you like so you can kind of view like how wide or kind of narrow the band is. You like when the band is like super, super wide, right? Price is really moving a lot recently, and there's some kind of uncertainty there. But when the bands start like narrowing and compressing together, and then also when you get that kind of consolidating with the higher time frame bands, like the red line on this chart is the 100 moving average, and then the yellow is the 200. Right, so when you get these kind of unicorn setups where you're on like sort of higher time frames, and then like all of these things start
Converging.
kind of like look at this here. So in January of 2023, right before kind of the GPT mania, you actually had the exact situation I'm talking about. You basically had the stock bottom on the weekly trend just above the 200, and it just turbo moon from there. But these setups, because they're like weekly set, like this setup does not come around. Like sometimes ever again for stocks.
So you
depending on
gotta
how
have
much
you
they
gotta
go up.
have some dry powder when these moments exist. And
Yeah,
then,
and apparently I need a stock screener. This is probably something I should add to my process. I'm not really a big screener guy,
well, the
but I think
screener
that's
like
silly.
a screener doesn't really help you in that scenario.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely does. Like something like this, right? It's something you can kind of filter for and then be like, oh, and then you look at the price action and you're like, nah, never mind. But like at least it is like, hey, take a look at this.
Okay. Well, yeah, I guess the screens that I typically use are all based on fundamentals, so that like wouldn't help me. But
Oh, we don't do that here.
yeah, right.
We don't do that here. Sorry. I didn't understand anything you were saying. All right, one more stock that we've definitely talked about that I am in still is Snap. I don't know if you've got thoughts on Snap.
Dude, I don't use social media at all. What am I gonna say about Snap?
I don't know. You don't have to say anything. Don't feel obligated. It's not. I didn't like prep you for this.
No, I don't know really anything about this app at all.
I mean, they have hundreds of like what do they have, like four? I feel like they have like 400 million.
So like people are
daily
still
active
using
users.
this thing, like
Yeah,
the youths?
massive amounts of people, and they have one of the largest, maybe the largest market share amongst like this sort of like Gen Alpha, kind of like 12-year-old to 20 cohort.
Well, I remember when it was popular back when it was like sort of new and it was kind of all the rage. I didn't know that it like had any staying power.
Yeah, like we're boomers for Snap, right?
Yeah,
so we kind
yeah.
of got off it, but the kids love it, and they're much like Zoom. They're doing interesting things with AI. I think they have like a micro subscription now because they've got filters and the kiddos like doing weird shit to their faces with the filters. And,
Yeah, those were always pretty fun and cool.
yeah. Snap is. I feel like like people have just always hated the management team. They seem to always fuck up earnings.
Okay.
I think everybody's kind of got PTSD on it. But the stock has already done like what we're hoping Zoom and Hood do, which is it sort of went through this really long sideways consolidation period and then had a massive breakout. Like we just went up only. This isn't even that long ago. This is October of 2023.
Well, everything kind of
Yeah.
pumped right after that.
Everything pumped, but Snap pumped 105%, which is pretty good for a stock.
That's great.
It's pretty good. Up only. It's sort of consolidating now, which I think is good and normal. You can't just go up only forever.
Which I think is also common of sort of everything right now, right? You kind of have this like cooling off period after a pump like that.
I think they've got earnings in early February, so not buying any more right now. Kind of want to see what happens there. Like I think if there's like a good thing happens and there's some momentum, I feel like I know how to get into the trade.
Well, let me ask
On a
you.
retrace.
Let me ask you then, because the way you sort of informed us with Robinhood, where you could see price retrace back into a zone, is that something you would look to do with Snap as well?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, probably going to be looking for like a setup on, the daily or something, not necessarily like the 15-minute. I mean, maybe if this thing is just, there's just like this holy shit moment where the market's like, oh my God, this thing is going to $40. Then you might have to kind of be like, yeah, I got to get in on the 15 or the hour. It's just going to, sometimes it's just going to go and it's going to leave you behind. And then you got to kind of get those really narrow time frame entries. But like for a stock, like, I mean, even like a daily setup it's kind of like low time frame on some of these things, especially when I hold them for long periods of time. A lot of this stuff is like weekly, monthly setups. But I'm playing this via leaps. So there's a little bit of time sensitivity to it.
But not really, right? Like, because a leap, you could go out to 2026 even.
I think I have. Do I have 2026? I think about 2025s, but I'm probably going to do 2026s in the next batch because I don't know. Like I don't know. Like I did 2025s before because I was just like, oh, this is kind of just like a momentum trade, playing momentum throughout the course of this year, whatever.
But it like to your, I guess to support you in the leaps, I think what I've seen recently is like a lot of these like kind of like old tech that have gone through this like long sideways, like after making highs years ago, like the options premiums are so cheap on these like long dated options where you can just like really YOLO and get so much bang for your buck.
I got to make an alert on this thing. I think we have a date with the 200 here. Snap 200 week.
We're watching Steven do an alert
Look at
in
that.
real time. I like this.
Because I'm going to be in the trade and I'm going to forget about this. And this could be like I think this is actually a really good target for the price because you've got the beginning of this pretty high time frame order block here.
Okay, for people who aren't on the stream, it's you did the 200 EMA. Is that what you did?
The 200 MA
Okay.
on the weekly.
Okay.
And there's perfect alignment. You can see there's perfect alignment with the 200 and this high time frame order block. These are big high time frame levels. Price is going to run into a wall there probably. So
God, this is a pretty good example of all of those lines converging like you described as well. Like right at the time of the run up.
confluence, baby.
Yeah.
Confluence is a thing. It's best to not ignore that. Anyway, I teased that I forgot the exact tease. Had something to do with options. I don't know. But you were talking to me earlier, I think about you've been shorting miners and maybe some other stuff.
Oh yeah, I've been short everything like from like year end. I was short everything that we loved.
Mm-hmm. Hurts.
Like writing everything, like all crypto stonks, Coinbase, miners, etc. Really played that quite nicely. I was like pretty fearful of Q1, particularly this like January timeframe. So I bought puts on everything. And I thought, at that time, I even told you, I was like, man, my hedges aren't hedging, right? Because like Coinbase dropped from 190 to 150, and I bought 150 puts, and I was like, fuck, I thought I would make more money than that. And now that Coinbase has dropped down to like 120, I'm like, oh God, these hedges are fucking hedging like a madman. Like these are 5x.
That's amazing because I sold calls as a hedge.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like a situation where like I know I'm going to collect all of this premium, but nothing more.
Right.
So in a scenario where it stalled and went sideways, I would have made a killing.
Yeah.
But and God, I thought about buying some puts and I didn't, and I should have. I should have used some of the proceeds to just buy some like deep out of the money puts. That would have saved like basically like my entire position. Like I still hedged like a decent chunk of it, but like man, we went from 180 or so to we're like $120 now. It's a big move in like 2 weeks.
Massive move. And
Insane move.
Okay, so some of my puts expire on Friday. So the 26th of January, Friday, tomorrow. And I'm wondering what to do here, right? Because like I've captured quite a bit of this move,
Mm-hmm.
But I'm personally still a believer that we haven't seen the end of this downturn. So I'm trying to decide how I want to play this. Like, obviously, I'm going to take the profit on the trade, but then what's my next move? I guess is what I'm considering, and I guess like the risk return doesn't look as good now that we're at 120 as it did when we were at 190.
It's not, and like you can clearly see on like the Coinbase 4-hour chart, like you don't have to be a freaking technician to say like we're losing momentum, right? We had these huge move and then another huge move, and now it's kind of a puny move relative to that. Do we have RSI on this? Yeah. Be curious what the RSI is still printing lower lows on these down moves on the daily and on the 4-hour, right? So it does look like it still wants lower, but also momentum is stalling. And then also you're coming into this sort of like mega high time frame order block that starts around like 114. And like we could just dip into the very top of that zone and then go again. Like that's entirely possible. That's what we did in the fall, if you'll recall. Like, I actually thought we were going to go lower than we did in the fall. But what ended up happening, I can't even find this. Like, we just went so mega up. My God. Let me pull up the monthly. I think it's easier to see on the monthly. Yeah. So here on the monthly chart for coin, monthly order block here. And this is basically, call it $73 to $50, right? I mean, look what we did. We just dipped into the. We just dipped our toes
It's like
into
a
it
nibble.
and then went.
It's a nibble.
Yeah, and like that happens when you have really, really strong price action, right? It doesn't necessarily like go all like normally you expect like price to kind of go into the 50%
Right.
of that zone, which would have been kind of in the 60s, right? And that's what I was expecting. And I was planning on buying more there, so I didn't really add to my position because I was already pretty long, and this wasn't like super high value to me. But that was wrong. We just reverse nuked into the heavens from there. But yeah, could have a similar setup here, or momentum. So the thing that's different this time is like look at the candles we had on this downtrend, right? They're all it's a very orderly sell-off, right?
Yeah.
There's no large moves. There's no gigantic gaps. Like, there's not a single, I guess there's like one 12-hour gap here.
The final
the very
leg
end.
down. Yeah.
Look what we've got in this move. I mean, there is a gap. There's an enormous gap. And then after that, another huge gap coming out of that next point of consolidation. So the momentum on this move down is significantly stronger, and momentum is like it's a thing. When people say don't knife catch, like this is kind of one of those scenarios where you don't want to knife catch. Like all of the big candles and the gaps are to the downside. There's not a single big gap candle to the upside here. Bears are in control here. And where are bulls going to step in? Like, I don't see any reason why they would step in before like 114 or so.
So what the red line is a moving average, and the yellow line's what are we looking at here?
Yeah. So the key levels on the daily, you actually are going to end up in a situation, I think, where kind of by March you're going to probably have the 200 on the daily, somewhere in this zone around like
100.
$95 or so. Which probably is pretty close to the 50% of that. Yeah, so like the 50 fib level of that entire zone is about $92.
That would be like a dream long, I think.
That'd be a really interesting long. So if you get a bounce off look what happened. I should have used moving averages. I don't use them that much, but I should, because like look what happened here.
It literally just
tapped the 200 and then just straight up. So,
but this time could be different because there's so much more of a bull case for Coinbase now, I feel like.
Yeah. We had the same thing over the summer too. I mean, look what happened here. We basically reclaimed trend. Trend was in line with the 200, and then that was literally the last down candle basically until it just went straight up. So I know magic astrology doesn't do anything, but like it does because everybody looks at it, everybody uses it as like a shelling point, and it just, I don't know, price does have these reactions. You could acknowledge that and use it, or you can just cope, I guess.
Yep.
But yeah, from high time frame daily, that sort of 90s zone is looking pretty good. Like, I would feel good buying more in there. Like, I don't want to buy more at 115. I don't. But I feel good buying at in the 90s.
I'll be honest. I do want to buy more, probably starting at 115. And the reason is because I'm cash rich now, just like from these puts, and I'm going to look to redeploy them. I think starting a bit of like a DCA from 115 sounds fucking glorious to me. Like, long term, 115, great.
Yeah, I'm kind of speaking like a trader, obviously. And you can do things like buy at 115, but like sell calls as well.
Yeah, you
right?
sell like
you can kind of do things.
sell like a 145 every week,
Like
and
you can acquire the stock, but still sort of express that bearish bias to an extent by doing stuff like that. So I think it's an interesting play for sure. You also sold puts on miners, right? Like you sold Mara.
yeah.
Okay.
No, bought puts
Oh,
on the
sorry, you
miners.
bought puts.
Yeah.
You bought puts on Mara. Of course. Yeah, Mara's at an interesting spot now. Massive downside momentum, but now we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 straight days of consolidation. Miners have been moving up in recent days, while Bitcoin has moved down. Possibly just getting ready for a dead cat bounce, right? Like we could have like a pretty good bounce and then just kind of retest, like basically like the daily MAs here. This is still a decent move in stonk land. Like that's a 20% move, right? Which for the miners is nothing.
Right, they'll just sneeze that, I guess, on a
But
day.
you absolutely could see like a bounce here and then lower for sure, and then you get your actual final capitulation. It's pretty unlikely to me, honestly, that we just bottom here and then go back up. It's possible, but like price right now is finding at least a temporary bottom, and this is sort of like where are we, like $16? This $16 range, if you pull up a chart, you will see like this zone here that gave you the move that broke market structure on this like very key level. So this zone is a really key zone because it delivered you like a really high time frame market structure break. So you're expecting a reaction here. This is a good trade, I think. Like I bought some today. I'm actually undecided whether this is a trade or it's like going to be like my long-term position. I think probably a trade unless I see some really interesting stuff on the Bitcoin chart. Like if we bounce, but then like Bitcoin just has some big daily candles and like reclaims of the yearly open and just starts looking, I might be like, oh, maybe I'll hold it. But like my base assumption right now is that we get some sort of dead cat bounce and then probably go to new lows. But then anything down here, I think the MAs are going to be good here too on the miners because
I agree with that.
Look, we have a similar situation. It's like crazy how the same thing happens on these charts. So this yellow line is the 50% of the high time frame. Like this, you could think of this as like a mega high time frame order block.
And what level is that? Sorry, what price is that?
This is 1350, and look at what you have at 1350. You've got the 200 and the 100. They're both going to be right there, end of February, right before the halvening.
Okay, guys, this is important. I think what Steven just pointed out is very important. Like, you don't need to rush back into these things. Like, we see this massive drawdown. I only know this just from people in the Discord who are like, oh, I'm going to buy this dip, or I'm going to sell puts, to like buy this dip or whatever. It's like you don't have to rush back into this stuff. But I think what you just pointed out there, that's the moment. That's the moment where you just fucking shove. And that's when I will be ready to shove.
I'll definitely be looking to shove. And for people who haven't been following along, like we rode riot calls from like $9 and basically sold almost the exact top at 18. You played Mara and made more money than me because you're smarter than me apparently. But we basically caught this whole move with no drawdown and sold the top, which is great because, at the end of last year, you and I were sitting here saying like, we should probably de-risk a little bit. Probably going to be sell the news. It's literally always fucking sell the news. And we were talking about the thesis that Hal published in his Medium, which is that like, look, price has run up already. You can see the price in coin. You can see it in MicroStrategy. You can see it in miners. Like there has been a ton of TradFi money that went into those stocks and then also into closing the Grayscale premium. Like a massive amount of money did flow into crypto, like tons. A lot of it was just in TradFi proxies. And we're now seeing the unwinding of that trade. I did re-add about 25 or 30% of my miner positions just because I have a long-term thesis. I don't want to like take like a short-term win and then fumble the long-term bag. And then like having like my feet in the water allows me to not have FOMO. And then when price dips, like I feel good. I'm like, all right, whatever. Like I'm still vast majority not deployed. and I can kind of like more objectively look at what's going on. Whereas like when I have nothing, I might be like really inclined to just like see like a green candle and then shove everything in because I think I'm missing out, and it's just a fake out, and it dumps lower, and then I've deployed all of my ammo, and now I'm underwater, and it feels like super, super bad. So
I really like what you said there. I really like what you said there because, you know, if I'm looking out to sort of the end of this cycle, which is like 18 months from now, 2 years from now ish, like that. I think Bitcoin goes to 120K or something. Like a miner like Riot right now. What's it trading at today?
1060.
1060. Like I think this thing is going to be so much higher. So even buying now, I don't care. I think that's still good. I'm just like, I guess I'm getting greedy that I want
like
lower.
The more you zoom out on these charts, it's like, wait. Like
Holy shit.
like we're sitting here. Okay, so by the way, I think Riot was a different company. It was definitely a different company before then, but like let's just, even if we just get rid of that part of the chart, like it's still, we topped at $80. We're at $10 now, so we are definitely sort of micromanaging positions to an extent,
right,
given the
we're
potential
like fiddling too much
long-term target.
But like when you play the options on a move like that is possible. You don't have to pay that much. You pay the premium that is like upfront. You know what your like potential loss is, and you just be okay with that. But then you get this potential upside that is fucking enormous, like to a degree that I think is like rivaling meme coin land, but with like higher probability in my mind. So that
that was a way that was. I mean, I don't know what you did, but like I made like over 700%
on that Riot
in
move.
Like a month and
so
a half.
That's actually like
not even.
That's what I wanted to ask you, because like I don't play meme coins. Like I'm kind of like on the record just being against that, because I prefer this game. I believe that when you play this game, particularly with options, you can have the high probability and high magnitude versus meme coins, which is like low probability, high magnitude.
Yeah, I mean, now that we have like a Bitcoin ETF and we're gonna have all these options on it, and like we're gonna have Grayscale, ETH with options, and it's making me question like why I do any altcoin trading at all. Like you can get a similar return profile, but in markets with like much better liquidity, like cleaner price action. Like I've been moving more and more and more and more and more money like off chain and just into just traditional brokerage accounts, because it's just so much easier to manage the positions. You can borrow against them. You can do all this like stuff that's like, I mean, obviously you can borrow against stuff in crypto too, but it's not the same.
No, the derivatives,
there's like this like
the derivatives are so good because you can express any view you possibly have. You can like turn it into like an income generating security like whenever you want to. It's fucking amazing.
Yeah, something I'm sure we'll keep talking about. Anyway, let's get on to the main course here, because we want to talk about the elephants in the room, which is that
baby,
Bitcoin has been nuking. Like our last show, we were kind of on the edge of a cliff, I think, and then we went off the cliff this week. Had a big move. Was it Tuesday? Got the 12-hour chart. I mean, this move wasn't a super huge surprise because we had. Prior to our last, actually no, was this after the last episode? No, it was prior. We had this like mega move down, right? From we had that quick wick to 49K, but then even the move from consolidation, 46,000 to 41.4, like that, like just instantly, huge impulse move down. Not surprising that we actually ran all of the lows of the current range we're trading in, like all of the lows. Like if I pull up like a weekly chart, you'll see these are all kind of critical weekly lows, the last of which being around like 40.1K or so. Ran that. Obviously people are panicking right now. Like they should be concerned, right? If you pull up a 4-hour chart, that's a 4-minute chart. Whoops. Yeah. Like if you pull up a 4-hour chart, this looks very bad. Look ugly, right? Just it looks terrible. The chart gets less bad the more you sort of zoom out. Even if you go to like a 3-day chart, what's interesting on a 3-day chart is you actually don't even have a gap anymore on any of these moves. And then obviously on the weekly, depending on how we close the weekly this week, this is something I've been saying for a bit now. But
right. Can you explain that that weekly close a little bit more? Because I know you deem that as important, but what do you see exactly that is important about it?
Look, so if we zoom way out, right, we've had this huge move that's taken place basically since November of last year. And the question on the minds of people who trade like me and kind of think of things in terms of like a market maker buy models, market maker sell models, where you have these sort of periods of accumulation, and then you have an expansion phase where price moves rapidly towards a particular point of liquidity, and then you have a distribution phase, and then price goes back down until it finds like some sort of new equilibrium where you get new accumulation, and then you kind of run the cycle over again, right? The question in my mind is always like, okay, what part of this phase am I in? Am I in expansion? Am I in retracement? Am I in consolidation? Am I in distribution? Am I in reaccumulation? So that's like the key question here. Price has obviously been going sideways in a range. Is this distribution? If this is distribution, we can expect lower and possibly like a lot lower. Like
Sorry, I have a question for you,
Yeah.
and it's pretty pleb. What does that mean? Like, are we in distribution? What does that mean?
So distribution is sort of the last phase of like the price expansion, right? So price moves not because you and I buy things, but because like large players, or like sort of an amalgamation of large players, buy, accumulate positions, and then offload those positions. So we start the move after like these players have accumulated large positions, and then they're typically taking price up to a point where they can distribute, i.e. sell if you're in a buy model, to people, right? And usually distribution happens above really key levels, like this 48K level, for example, right? This is a key level because you have two things that happen when price goes above these levels. One, you get breakout traders who come and buy the breakout. So if you're a large player and you have huge sell orders, you want a lot of people buying the breakout, and then you're sort of absorbing all of those buy orders, right? The other thing that happens is you have buy stops from people who shorted and put their stops above these sort of like key areas of the market, right? So if you're a large player and you need to offload an enormous position, you're going to do it like above these critical highs, right? So distribution is just the period of time in which like you typically see some sort of sideways movement and price is kind of not going anywhere, or maybe it's faking out to the upside and kind of just whipsawing people because large players are they're offloading what they sort of bought earlier, right? Reaccumulation is a period where like you have this lengthy move, the move goes for a bit and it cools off, but it's not necessarily over. Like people have taken profits, we have a retracement, but people are buying back in again to sort of take it up for like another leg.
Okay,
right?
so I get what you're saying. So that was very helpful. Thank you. I guess what I'm gathering now is that you're trying to determine whether or not on this chart this is a distribution or a reaccumulation, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's very helpful.
So my default thought, like my instinctive thought is that like, look, this is the level. We had a wick above this level. Like we ran this level for like 15 minutes or something. I don't know. Maybe it was an hour. It felt like zero time. Like people were just bull posting and then scrambling to delete tweets by the time like I got back from the dog park. Like it just happened so fast. We went sideways here for a very long period of time. Like this is 217 more. Like, so if you, 275 days basically of
Good
sideways.
gosh, yeah. Felt like more when you're in it, to be
Or
honest.
the same price, right? So the idea to me that we basically just wick above the level and we're done, or that we, even get 28 days of it doesn't feel to me like enough time for people to offload these bags, given the length of the accumulation phase. So it's been my default assumption that we need to go higher. Like nobody even had a chance to believe that we were going high. Like people have to buy in to the dream. Like they have to be mashing the market buy button at like $50,000, like thinking it's going to go to all-time highs, like 100%. If that's not happening, I just feel like they're not able to like offload those bags in the quantity they need to. Like, and a good example of this is like, the top in 2021. Like, look how long this took. Like from the first candle we topped out, I mean, this was 84 days of consistent like high, sweep the high. Like you had a lot. We set a high, we put in a new high, then we swept that high, broke down, came back, retested it, and then finally had this like mega nuke. Like we just haven't even like we haven't even closed the new high above the initial high we set yet. And look, it is possible for these things to play out this way, where you do sometimes get like price hits this level and it just turbo nukes and it's like, whoa, what the hell happened? It just wicked. But like it's not my default assumption.
So then using I guess what you just described, like I guess you're suggesting that this is probably more likely a bit of a reaccumulation.
I think so. The main argument against this for me is that like I like to use these range projections, to sort of like map out where I think moves are going to go. And like 4 is like a pretty good level for me. Like that's usually the final spot. Like that's like that was pretty good for this move from the bottom. Like that, like I marked that out on my chart as like 45.6K, which was basically the range high. And then we swept that and nuked. So that's the one thing that like gives me pause. But like I still think like we need like a more extended period of time above like that level. And like I don't know, like I really liked this kind of weekly gap we had here, like around this is like 59 to 62,000. Like this is definitely where people are like, oh my God, right? Because we're probably here in the high 50s, and like we've cleared 48K, and people are like, it's on, baby.
Dude, if this
we
happens,
broke structure.
if that happens, I'm gonna be like, holy shit, we're back. There's no chance of ever looking back. Like it's just on.
Yeah, and the price is going up here, and people are like, woo, and then you get this spike into here, and people are like, yeah, oh no, fuck, oh God, we're breaking out. Wait, no, we get another spike up. Yeah, we're back, but and then nuke, right? Like that is more of the pattern like that I'm sort of used to. But again, that is just a hypothesis. Like if things happen with like the close this week, like I have to reevaluate that. So one of the things that I was saying is like what is sort of like an invalidation for me here, where I am looking at this and going like, oh shit, like I need to like really, really hedge. When you have a reaccumulation range, you very frequently see like price do like, we talk a lot about this idea of like accumulation, manipulation, distribution, right? It's the same in a reaccumulation range where price goes sideways and then you have a fake out move in a direction and people sort of panic And then that move actually reverses and then goes in the other direction. You know, we call that like people in Wyckoff call that like a spring. You call it what you want, but it's like it's an interesting characteristic of these moves, right? So if this move this week like ends up closing like above this 40.1K low, like ideally even higher, I think there's some key levels here. Yeah. Like if we end up pushing to like 41.2, which we might do, like then you're above like a critical monthly mid range. You've swept all the highs. You close back inside the range. Now you're like, we just swept the lows of the range and we're back inside of it. Ooh, like maybe
that could be bullish.
That feels bullish to me. But
okay,
if we have a big move down and close outside, I'm like,
Okay, so let's just say that we do close above 41 or whatever that level is you just described. So the weekly candle closes at like our time, like 1 p.m. ish on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
That's like what you're going to be tuned in to the charts.
Yeah.
At that moment, waiting to see where we close.
Mm-hmm.
And then what if we're below?
I'm probably looking on the charts like where I can get in and a move in the opposite direction for a move lower.
Okay, so can we pull up that Chris Berniski tweet, which is related to Bitcoin price and I guess like all of crypto, I guess.
Because Chris does not really agree with my view. And like, look, Chris could certainly be right. I'm not a freaking savant.
And nobody knows, just to be clear.
Nobody knows this stuff for sure. So Chris Berninsky, who called the bottom and called Solana.
He's kind of like an OG, right?
He's got some cred. He used to work for ARK, right, with Kathy.
He kind of like ran their crypto division.
Yeah, he's not a schmuck. But he put out a post. Is this today?
Yeah.
Yeah, continue to think we go lower to consolidate than most people expect due to variables that are too many to explain in detail via tweet. Thanks, Chris. As for the denial out there, are we in denial right now? Good question. It takes time for partiers to sober up. Saw lots of drunkenness over the last month.
That's
factual. And I was one of those people like yelling at the Solana people in December, right?
Yeah.
I know.
You know what a party looks like.
I know what a party looks like at this point.
Yeah.
And I have no shame in taking part in the party, but I got one eye on the exit the whole time because like I kind of know what's up. In my opinion, Bitcoin to at least 30 to 36K before a local bottom. I wouldn't be surprised if we test the mid to high 20s before all is said and done. We can make an actual move towards previous all-time highs. Path to get there will be volatile. Expect fake outs, and will take months to play out. And I think that's probably the bulk of this tweet, but that's basically what he's saying. I won't bore everybody with the entire thing. He does say he's not majorly de-risking. He's not shorting. He's just counting his bullets, sharpening my blade. Think we go higher. I basically agree with that.
Yeah, I think the last paragraph, he's talking about how we get parabolic moves, and we just saw the first parabola of this cycle, basically. Mm-hmm. And I agree with that. And I think like when you get these parabolic moves, then you get like the time to digest that parabolic move actually goes longer than a lot of people are like ready for. And I think that's sort of the crux of his tweet. And he's saying that, we could go months of sort of like sideways lower highs. And that's kind of like how I actually view this thing. Do we get volatility where we can go higher onto the chart that you drew out, where it goes into the 50s? Could happen. But then like I'm still like Q1 sort of like bearish everything.
I can certainly make a good bear case and a good bull case. In my opinion, there's not a strong reason from like a price action perspective to be like, oh, it's over for Bitcoin right now. I think it's 50-50, honestly, whether this is.
I know it sounds like you're waiting for the weekly close to inform
I
you.
am, but and even then, it's still just another data point. Like
Right.
sometimes you have a thing, and then like you just finally see that thing, and you're like, oh shit, actually, I am seeing this all wrong. And
Well, hang on. So, like on your chart, can you just see how high we ran from like mid October to sort of like beginning of this year? Just see what that price move was in percentage terms, because like,
I mean, it's a huge move.
and that's I think what
Huge
he's
move.
saying, where it's just like,
I mean, Bitcoin ran 80%. Like that's
pretty fucking high.
it's a wild move.
It's
yeah.
a wild move, and I think like when the move kind of ends, it takes a while for that to like just bounce again higher.
And you can see what I was talking about earlier with like the moving average bands here. Like, look how wide they are right now versus like where we.
Yeah.
And look at the same thing that happens here. We have compression of the bands, and then as soon as we reclaim the 200 week, just up only. So interesting spot there. I mean, you definitely got a little bit of a fake out there initially, which kind of wrecked people, which is why markets are hard to trade.
Markets.
We had a similar thing happen in June, and it was a bad fake out, and people got burned and said we're dying, we're going lower. I was like where I was holding the line and screaming at the clouds.
Good job.
But I don't have the conviction right now that I had over the summer. Like I'm pretty open to a bunch of possibilities over the next 3 months. Like I feel pretty strongly about the next 12 to 24 months.
Oh, I feel so strongly about the next 12 to 24 months. I'm only talking about basically just March, like March of this year. And then you get into election year type shit, and we're going to be flying, baby.
Yeah. I mean, in favor of Chris here, right? Like if you pull up a Bitcoin daily chart, and I kind of throw on some of these key levels, right? What's important to note here is that this is basically like a key monthly high, and this is like that was a terrible line. Let me draw a better line. This is
First time, huh?
This is a key monthly low. So 37.5 to 44.7. A lot of this price action is contained in this like monthly range, and price is often going to one side of the range seeking liquidity, going to the other side of the range seeking liquidity, or going to the mid range. And you've got ranges on ranges on ranges. You might be in a daily range, there's a yearly range, there's a monthly range, there's an hourly range. Like there's a lot of stuff going on here. It's tricky to know like what is actually happening. But like when I look at this, I see a monthly high, right? And then I see like a very obvious sort of deviation, liquidity grab above that range.
Totally.
And then you typically test the mid-range first. We went through the mid-range, right? So for me, like a logical target is the bottom of that range, which is the previous month's low at 37.6. Like,
Yeah.
I think we go there. At the same time, I'm long right now because
You're going lower time frame.
yeah, like on lower time frame, like I see Monday's range, right? Monday's range is a big deal, right? And I saw sort of like a run on liquidity, and then like a big impulsive move up and a reclaim of the Monday low. I went long pretty close to the Monday low, and like we're holding this right now. And I think if you pull up like I think like a 2-hour chart of Bitcoin right now is like the cleanest way to view a lot of this stuff. Although actually like on the 1 hour, there's like an interesting thing you can see. One of the things let's go with the 2. One of the things I really like to trade is like inverted gaps. So you have a gap and then price reclaims it, because these things typically act as support when they were, previous maybe previous resistance and vice versa, right? So you have a really impulsive move down from like 40.1 all the way down to the low of the week, 38.5, and then you basically get like a strong move back up through reclaiming that low, right? So you could argue that the move we had on Tuesday, this is like basically a range deviation of the Monday range. And then when you get a lot of people shorting and then you've got a lot of stops being built up. Now price starts to kind of seek liquidity, and it runs against those people, right? And so there's some obvious targets for me. First is going to be the monthly mid-range, and then these highs here, kind of in the middle, around like 41.3 or so. That's kind of my first target. That's also like an interesting area to me because that's like where we can maintain bearish structure, right? So this zone broke the low. If we reclaim the zone, like if we run 42.1 and break that, that's a shift in structure now. So now you're not necessarily expecting price to bounce off this and go lower, right? So until that happens, like you are expecting price to sort of rally here and then go back down and kind of continue with that trend.
So when you're trading like a lower time frame like this, I guess you're already long, and then would you look to get out at that point where you drew price goes to, or are you like waiting to see how it responds?
I'm taking profits, and then depending on whether or not I'm at the computer, like I'm maybe not doing anything and just waiting to see how it responds at a level, because it's a terrible waste to just like sell and it was just like a mega candle that never even went down. You're like, oh, I could have just put a trailing stop and it would have never gotten hit, and I'm dumb. So being glued to your computer is pretty useful. Things get interesting like once we reclaim 40.3, because 40.3 is the previous week's low, and now you're like, wait a minute, are we gonna run the whole weekly range now? Because that takes you up here to 43.5, and to me that's like a pretty logical target, right? Because price doesn't like these like enormous inefficiencies. Like
okay.
Even if we are going lower, like we had this mega zone here, like 45,000-ish, that is just completely untouched.
Hang on, I really like this. I liked how you went high time frame for like most of the audience, and now we're getting into like trader land, and this is cool. And I'm like learning from you right now. So when you're in one of these like low time frame trades, and you're watching to see how price responds to a certain magic line that you've drawn, like do you then zoom in to even a lower time frame, like a 15-minute, a 5-minute? Like are you doing the same thing, just like fractally on like a lower time frame again and again?
Yeah, for sure. So like the way my process works is I start on the weekly, and I have like a particular bias on the weekly. Right now, like when I started this week, I was like, okay, price is probably drawing towards this zone here, which is a weekly fair value gap. And this was basically 38.4 to 39.9. You can see we filled a huge chunk of that, basically the whole thing, and we've reacted off of that. Again, like price doesn't like gaps. Like the market tends to want like a chance to offer or bid at particular zones where like only one side of the order book kind of got in. Like, so you see this a lot. And in like really, really strong moves up, you typically see price wick down into that zone and then just go. Like it doesn't. So if price starts trading through that area, you're like, it's not respecting the zone, which should be like a trampoline to keep pushing it up. Sort of like a red flag.
Yeah.
Like if this was a 1-minute chart and like all I saw was this, right? I'd be like, wow, that's a really, really, really strong move. It took a little breather, swept some liquidity at the top, but then it was reacting off this gap, which I would expect it to. And normally I'd actually expect it to try to make a new high again off of a gap like we have here. Now, it's important to note that there's more context here, because like this is in the context of price being in this kind of high time frame zone. Like this zone dominates the day-to-day chart right now. This is like a thing that played out over the course of months. The higher time frame dominates the lower time frame. So you do have to be aware with like what time frame you're on and what you're sort of doing. But getting back to my process, right? In the beginning of the week, right, I was looking for shorts because I thought price on the weekly wanted to draw into the zone. Once it hits it, like you've met the weekly objective. you're like, okay, there's not like a clear target on the weekly anymore, and you can start kind of going down, right? So when you go down, the next thing you look at on the daily is you're like, okay, well, price is going to want to first feel like inefficiencies on the daily. It's going to feel gaps on the daily. And you can see that one of the first things it did after taking that low was bounce into this daily gap. And you see you got a wick into that, right? So if you could have taken a trade here on like the 15-minute, knowing that the daily, like a much bigger time frame, is pulling the price like a magnet up to that zone.
Okay, so now let me ask you a quick question about that particular zone.
Mm-hmm.
Now that the price went into that, does that now sort of like remove that fair value gap as like a thing on the chart that like is meaningful?
Yeah, you could say like, okay, this has been mitigated to a degree. It could go back into it. It could, but like once price taps into it, like its value as a magnet like gets like sort of less and less and less, because like the sellers or the buyers, like they have had a chance to like sort of operate there where a lot of them were left behind. Same thing with like supply and demand zones. Like if you tap a demand zone over and over and over and over again, like eventually all the buyers have bought, and like you can't necessarily expect that price is going to hold there on like the fifth tap. You know, it's a similar thing. So yeah,
I guess you would look for the next thing on the chart then to be the magnet. What's the next magnet, right?
Ooh, baby. Another Bitcoin alert.
Bitcoin alert. What happened? It crossed the 41.
Yeah. So right now I'm like sort of zooming in on the 4 hour now, because I'm like, okay, price wants to run highs, right? So if you know in like the bigger time frames, price wants to go into an area, but that area on the daily is just a gap. But once you zoom into the 4 hour, you're like, oh, look, there's a high. So if I know that this zone is kind of a magnet on the daily, I zoom in and I'm like, where are the highs within the zone, right? So I've got this whole area is basically an order block. This is supply that broke a critical low. When price goes back to this, it's going to be drawn to this zone, and you're probably going to get a reaction. So getting drawn to the zone, running highs in that zone, these highs are sort of like a target. And that's why this is like a big take profit level for me, right? But if you zoom out, like if you get off the hourly, right, and you start looking at like the weekly, again, we're talking about weekly ranges, like if we kind of reclaim this 40.3 level, you can start saying to yourself, okay, like, well, maybe price wants to go back to the other side of the weekly range, and then that makes sense because you also have this high time frame gap that is also drawing price up to it, because price is going to seek, you know, buyers and sellers there that didn't have a chance to.
Okay, so I totally see what you're saying, and this is so helpful. So like, so there's that green line that you circled. I guess like what I'm seeing is like that first take profit line, right? Price is going to be magneted to there probably. Mm-hmm. I like that idea. When it goes there, there's going to be volatility around it, right? It's going to be on both sides of that line for a time. Like, at what point do you know, or in your mind, are you like, okay, we're actually sort of going above that, and now we're targeting these higher targets?
There's a few things you can use as indicators that price is or isn't going in the direction you want. So like my default assumption in this zone is that price is going to reject and go down, because that is what the daily structure is. It shouldn't violate this high. So if price runs 42.1, right? Like if it actually comes into the zone and just straight up goes there and then bounces off this little supply area here, like you get a bounce there, but like you've now broken the structure. You're now no longer in that bearish structure. Now you're like, ooh, like if we took that
brand
high,
new game.
We probably want to look at the next high now. And then where's the next high? The next high is the previous week's high at 43.5 inside of this kind of big gap.
But you would wait for it to even break through all your yellow boxes. You would wait for it to break through that to like sort of confirm to you that structure is changed.
Yeah, but there's other stuff you can use as well. Like, so like gaps are like an important part of my trading. Like the concept of displacement. Displacement is when price moves like very, very strongly, rapidly through a particular level, usually leaving what we call fair value gaps. It's an indication that buyers or sellers have sort of overwhelmed the other side of the market, right? You want to be on the side of those people as a general rule. Like if there are buyers who are buying so strongly that they're gapping price up, you want to be hitching your coattails to them, right? So if we enter this zone and I start seeing like bearish gaps on like the 1 hour, the 15-minute, that's going to be an indication to me that the sellers are in fact still in control of this zone. And maybe I want to actually TP the whole trade here. Like maybe I think this zone is going to hold and I'm going to just get out and maybe even flip short because we're going to go lower. But you can't just look at what's happening on a 15-minute or a 1-minute chart without having the sort of bias or the context from the higher time frame. Because if you don't, like if you just look at a 1 hour thing and it looks bearish, but it's happening in the context of a bullish daily zone, the market's going to say like, fuck, you're short. Like I'm bullish on the daily. I don't care what's happening on the 5-minute chart.
Right.
So you need to have an alignment of all of those things. And
No,
that's what happens when people get lost on the low time frames and forget what's happening.
Dude,
when
this is so good. I think in the chat we've had vibes saying like, I think I'm gonna have to rewatch this whole episode.
Yeah, like I hope we didn't go too deep there. For
No,
people.
that was.
I think we lost like 10 viewers during that segment.
No, that was very deep. But like, I'm sitting here learning, so like I loved what you just said. I think it's worth rewatching because that was really fucking good.
I think that would be a good rewatchable moment for people. But
No.
the people who just popped in off the YouTube recommendation are probably like, what the
fire
fuck
hose
is this guy
just
talking
in
about?
the face.
This guy is so high. He's taking so many mushrooms.
No, I thought this was awesome.
Somebody just popped in and looked at this chart and they're like, cool.
Yeah.
Cool story, bro.
Yeah, where's price going?
Cool story, bro. Anyway, yeah, so let's just TLDR the whole thing for people. Like in summary, like I am looking at the Bitcoin weekly close. I want to sort of keep evaluating whether or not this is sort of like a distribution or sort of like a reaccumulation range. If this is a reaccumulation range, one of the things that can happen is we could actually just go back into this range and just go sideways. Like we could actually just go sideways here for 2 months. That's a thing that could happen. It's the thing people forget is like an option.
Yeah,
in
yeah. Nobody
markets.
thinks
Like,
about that one.
It's going to go up or down. Is it going up?
Right.
Is it going down? Well, sometimes it just goes sideways. And if we go sideways here, like alts could really, really run hard. And one of the interesting things about like Tesla that I think we mentioned is like I found it hard to buy why Tesla would go down and stocks would go up. And I think part of that is because like we've been programmed for a long time to just see the entire world as one gigantic correlated trade, like a trade that is literally just liquidity. Like we're all just trading government funny business manipulation of the markets, and everything goes up and everything goes down. What's been interesting to me is like I think even within crypto, like all alts aren't going up and all alts aren't going down. Like there is, I think, more differentiation in the path of altcoins than like I have maybe ever seen in the crypto market. Like there are legit things that are flying and legit things that look like they're going to be 6 feet under within like a month or two.
I mean, should we talk about any of those? Because
I think we should. So let's zoom way out. Let's just look at the altcoin market as a whole. So let's look at total 2. We looked at total 3 last week, but I want to look at total 2 because total 2 is includes Ethereum. So everything that's not Bitcoin. And if we start on the weekly chart, let me get this last moving average out of here. Let's try to make this as clean as possible.
yeah, after that last seizure we just gave everyone.
Like if we zoom out, like we zoom way out, we went sideways and accumulated for a while in this range. We broke out of this range. This to me is very, very bullish. Now, if we trade back into this range on total too, like if we trade back into, we start accepting below 700 billion, price, goes here or something, like that's bad. Because then you're looking like at maybe going back to the middle or even the bottom of the range again, and that's no fun for anybody, right? But like what I see right now is like a range breakout and some, sideways reaccumulation action like above the range. It's perfectly fine. And we're bumping into like a, just huge inefficiency. This is going to give you a reaction most of the time, like for reasons we stated earlier. So none of this is like super surprising to me on the higher time frame. I feel like at a minimum, if you break out of this range, you want to at least like hit like the bottom of this zone here, right at like 950 billion. That's another 30% up from here in total market cap, but eventually, probably take out this high and go to all-time highs, right? But in my mind, I'm like I'm not in this freaking trade to just poke out of the zone and go back in. I'm thinking I'm targeting this zone with altcoins. Like I don't feel like they've actually moved that much yet.
Okay, so hold on. This is good. So I want to pause there because I think this goes. I have a question about our previous discussion. So total 2 is the entire crypto market cap excluding Bitcoin. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so that's just alts plus ETH. I guess you could call it ETH and alt. But like, so when you're drawing this line on the chart that is targeting this level, that's 30% higher. That's like just in absolute terms 30%? Like
that's the total market cap in aggregate.
I mean, like that. Like I think this goes back to the point that we talked about earlier, where it's just like we're playing in like this really high risk sandbox to like make a 30% move. It's kind of like.
But that's just like, this is just a trade. Like you're in this. Like if you're just a long-term investor, you're in this to go up here, right?
Of course. But like like you go.
You're in this for 200%. And keep in mind, like 200% is everything, including ETH. Like that might be 100% on ETH and then like 500% on really low market cap shit coins, right? We're looking at everything in aggregate.
MNT. Like, are you in any MNT? I feel like MNT is like kind of like one of the most interesting alts right now. Is it Mantle?
Oh! I thought you said MMT.
No, not modern money
theory
or
are
whatever.
You into MMT, bro? I'm actually in Manta and slaying. Actually,
okay.
I TP'd like half the trade a little too early. We'll pull that chart up later. But I want to go kind of top down because I want to evaluate what Berniski's saying and like, is there a truth to it? The answer is like yes. Of course, that could happen. In my mind, on like the higher time frame, we aren't really in that panic stage yet. Now, when you zoom in a little bit, like if I zoom in on a daily chart of this looks really ugly, right? Because we have these zones that we've talked about, these forceful moves, these imbalances that have formed. There's like a really, really big one, but we even have like a little one here, and for those of you who are just listening, sorry, but you'll get the gist of it, right? But the formation of this gap is a indication to me that like sellers have like overwhelmingly taken over this market. Like, and look what we have, right? We put in highs, we sweep the highs, we run the highs, we close below. I wasn't paying attention to this at the time. Like if I was, like as soon as I see this gap form here, like if you see sweep of high time frame level and then gap, the standard trade is you get in on the retrace of that gap and you actually would have just rode this whole move down hedged. It's hard to catch everything, but I wasn't looking at this particular chart at the time, and these things are
I feel like I've seen ICT
easy to call.
He's like
in hindsight,
playbook, yeah.
Really freaking easy to trade in hindsight. I'll tell you that. But even now, right? Like we have to ask. Like what I ask myself as a trader is like, where is price going? Like what is the draw? Now on the weekly, like I actually think the draw is like higher, like we talked about. But that doesn't mean that in the short run we can't go lower before going to that higher draw. This is the importance of like knowing like where are you trading? Like are you trading on a multi-year time horizon, or are you trading like 3-day swings or something? But when I see this move, like my first thought is like, okay, where is the liquidity? And where is the liquidity? Well, we swept some of it here, right? We have this low, we have this low, we have this low. So we get all these lows that are untapped, and then they are all sitting right above like a sort of like fat zone here. So, and then you can see on the left like our do not go back inside zone, right? But we can have something happen. Like we could have like a wick. I think what's actually probably going to happen is we trade up here. Everything's sold off a lot. We get a bounce. We get a lot of bounces in alts. People are like, oh, we're so fucking back, baby. But what happens actually is we just run all this. But then you want to see like a wick here, like a quick bounce, get the fuck out of that zone, back up, and then
Otherwise, Berniski is right.
Otherwise, like like if we go back into this other box and just start accepting back into the I don't want to see that. That's really bad.
I guess I just like, man, to our previous discussion, I look at this and I'm just like, we're accepting too much risk for not a high enough return in this time frame. I would just rather do something else. Literally could get 40% in Verizon. Why the fuck am I doing this?
It's a valid question. We definitely fuck people up on the stream. Jaker said he's 8 minutes behind and having a seizure. Sorry, Jaker.
What happened? That was just like our
yeah. Look,
okay.
I'm sorry, guys. I did make a mental note to myself to not get too trader on the show, but like Eric had some questions. They were good questions.
Dude.
We followed the rabbit down the hole. I'm sorry. Just skip over that part if it was too much.
No, that was my bad because I find it fascinating.
It's good info. Good info.
I thought what you shared was like fucking alpha emoji. You know that little weed emoji. I thought it was pure weed emoji, and I learned a lot, and that's why I kept asking because it was like so good. But I get how it can be fucking overwhelming because like I've gone through ICT, dude. Like I've learned some of this shit. So when you tell me, like I'm kind of like I'm not in just like first grade. I'm in like third grade.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, it's a lot easier for people who like the casuals who follow this, but like who are in the market. It's a lot easier to just be on the weekly and like, where is support on weekly?
Yeah, right.
Where is big moving average?
Yeah, you did.
Okay, like I buy there, I sell. Where's big high? I sell at big high. You know,
you did do that first though. So to your credit, like you did give him that.
Yeah.
And then it got a little crazy.
But yeah, like my current plan is to basically like heavily de-risk in this box. Like if we get a bounce up here next week, even Bitcoin holding the line, like I think we could still see a spot where Bitcoin holds the line, but actually like the market just keeps bleeding like crazy on alts. And that's kind of what the charts are telling me right now, is that alts want to go down in aggregate. Bitcoin, unclear on whether it wants to hold the line, but I think alts go down 100% if Bitcoin doesn't hold the line, and they also go down a percentage of the time that Bitcoin does hold the line anyway. So it's kind of a rough bet right now. But yeah, I'm looking for spots to kind of hedge alts in this area, and for me, like if I look at this chart and we go back up here, you know, like 800 billion or so, reclaim that, I'm like, okay, maybe I can start thinking about getting back in again. But like I want to really, really be a buyer of alts if we kind of trade back into this zone, because I'm still like super long-term bullish.
Same.
You know? And like, what am I looking at right now for alts? Like my main thing is still ETH and ETH beta. Like that was a good trade for a week. It is heavily reversed. Thank freaking God I actually sold and took profits. Like I had to hit myself on the head, because sometimes you're like, this trade is so obvious it's going to keep going, and then you just have to slap yourself. So I only gave like half of the trade back, which is nice. But like the big question for me right now is like ETH, and ETH keeps like just really.
Thank God we finally show an ETH chart. For God's
Here's
sake.
the ETH chart. It looks bad. Like it looks really really bad. I hate this chart right now.
Hold on, because I follow you on Twitter, sir, and you said plug your nose and buy here if you like ETH.
Yeah.
So start with that.
Yeah, I mean, if you're wrong, you don't lose too much, and it's just like all over. But like when you this is similar to what happened on Coin. So the reason I shorted or hedged Coinbase was because we had a specific thing happen. We had a range form, right? So there's your range. We had big impulsive move out of range, and then it just big impulsive move back in. See that?
So that's the manipulation.
Gap, and then this basically becomes like a deviation. Now, if you pull up the coin chart, like if we go here, and this happened on the coin on a lower time frame, which is why it was kind of a sketchy trade for me. Like I did this coin trade on the hourly, which is not something I like to do, but like I just knew it, and I still have it kind of circled here. This is what happened on coin. The context is we're in a high time frame zone where I'm expecting us, like you can see this line here.
Yeah.
That's big
was a
line.
high time
That's
frame
important line. That's
Yeah.
like monthly line. Like, oh my God, line, bad. And like it's so clean what happened. Like you form a little consolidation, you go up forcefully above the line, and then what happens? You forcefully go back into the range. Deviation in the context of big level. Like as soon as this happened, like somebody in the Discord was like, I didn't see an entry here. And it's true. Like if you follow like the sort of like ICT trader main, like whatever, like you look for the break, you get in on the retrace and and then you go. But like this move was just like gap, goodbye.
Yeah,
Sorry.
right.
Later.
It never like went back into the zone.
Later, fucko. So one kind of rule of thumb I sometimes have is like when I see like 2 consecutive gaps like that, and I'm just like, okay, range, out, back in, high time frame level, gap. If we lose this, it's just nuking. I'm just like, fuck it, short.
Yeah.
And then like I'll cut it like if it looks like it's going back above. But I just like, yeah, I just
Okay,
made the
so
options there.
help people.
Let's go back to.
No, hold on. I want to do this coin thing real quick.
Okay.
Just because when you like went short, right? It was like your version of hedging, and I talked about my version with buying puts, but like you sold calls, and I'm interested in this because I sell calls all the time, but I do it for like income generation, not as like a hedge against my longs. Like, what level did you choose to sell your calls as the hedge here?
I sold in the money. I sold, I think, 160 or 165.
Yeah. So that's interesting to me because like typically when I'm looking for income generation, I'll sell like out of the money, but you sold in the money.
Yeah, I wasn't making an income generation play. I was making like I was playing like price. I was playing delta. Like it's a high delta call, which means it moves very highly correlated with price, and you're not going to get these moves in volatility that fuck you, right?
Okay.
That happens a lot when you trade out. You think you're making like a bet on the price action, but actually the option it just goes up or down because of volatility, and then price
Right.
goes in your favor, and then vol goes down, and then you don't make any money, and you're
Right.
like, what happened?
Right. So this one you sold 160 and you got paid handsomely, very handsomely for that 160 that you sold. I'm sure of it because vol was high and
Yeah.
that was deeply in the money.
Yeah.
So that's like a very good hedge. I like that.
Yeah, I basically got like almost like 20% of my whole
Yeah.
like stack on that, like in premium there. So it was pretty juicy. Anyway, back to ETH. Let's talk about ETH.
Back to ETH.
Let's talk about ETH from like a non chart perspective here, just because I think there's probably a lot of people who are losing their minds right now. And sorry, guys.
Yeah, we're getting a little lost in the.
Let's not get too lost in the sauce here. What happened was ETF is approved, Bitcoin goes up, people go, ooh, what's next? ETH. And then we see the reversal in ETH BTC. and then everybody piles on the ETH trade because ETH is next. Then people see the grayscale thing, and then the market, I think, goes, wait a minute, ETH has a grayscale trust too, with an even bigger discount, I think, that people
It's at like
are bidding up
15% right now.
close.
It's at
and
15% today. Like,
yeah, and it was way worse than Bitcoin at the bottom, I'm pretty sure. Feel free to fact check me on that.
I think it went down to like 33% or something.
Yeah.
The discount was insane.
And then the market was like, oh, fuck. Like, even if this ETF does happen, the same thing is going to happen again. And then, like, ETH just went in the shitter. Like, if you pull up, like, an ETH BTC chart, you can kind of see what's happened there. Why do I not have ETH BTC loaded on this? That's my fault. But, yeah, if you pull up an ETH BTC chart, you can see we had big move up. Everybody's like, woo, ETH to Valhalla. And then we just nuked, right? And now we're back down to 0.055. We peaked at 0.061. Like, this pretty solid move from the peak to where we are now. We just ate like 10% on the ratio, which was like a pretty big move. I think it's like an interesting question of like, did we actually already price this whole thing in? Like, one of the things that happens in markets is like you have like an unexpected event, and then like something happens in the price because like the sort of, you know, dollar weighted average of the market was not expecting that. And then because you had that outcome, price suddenly moves like a lot in a particular direction because that was not what the expectations were pricing in. Then you have another thing happen, and then the market is like, the people in the market are like, ooh, I've seen this before. I need to sell.
Right.
But then everybody has already learned that that's what happened, and then everybody sells. And then what ends up happening is like, before this ETF is even live, before like it's even clear that anything is going to be approved at all, like it's actually already maybe priced in all of the
downside.
GPT shenanigans, and maybe even like over sort of compensated to the other direction.
Right.
So there can be a point where we actually go too far the other way because people think the same thing's going to happen, but actually the market has now learned, and like there's no edge in that anymore, and then people go actually the wrong way.
God, I could fucking steel man this. Like, imagine by August when the deadline is for the ETH ETF approval, like Bitcoin inflows actually are just only positive and Bitcoin price is higher. Like, and we have this like expectation of downside, and if this thing just spring loads the other way.
Yeah, I see a lot of catalysts for a spring up right now. Like, people are really dark because we've just been logging into Twitter first thing in the morning, and everybody's pulling up like Arkham Intelligence, and they're like, wow, Grayscale sent 642,000 Bitcoin. I didn't even know that there were that many.
Right.
And they like psyops this the other day. Did you see that?
No.
Oh my God, dude. Like, they sent they sent like some low number initially. Like, I feel like they've been selling like 15,000 or 20,000.
They did start with like 90 in the morning or something like that.
But it was worse than that because 90 people were like, but like there was like a transfer, I think, where they transferred like a couple thousand, and people were like,
oh, it's over.
It's over. And then they just came through with like,
and here's another 15K.
So like there's so much trauma in the market. But it's possible that like we're at the point now where the market's actually almost completely priced in the GBTC flows. And I know there's some people who say like, oh, you can't price in flows, because I think there's some truth to that. But like also like there can certainly be people who are like, oh, this is going to dump in the coming months. I'm going to just max short on perps and futures. And
right. Yeah.
they can kind of get off sides actually.
I think so.
So I question whether we are like, we're sometimes at a point where like there's so much bad news in the freaking market that like one day comes in where it's actually like over, or it's like less. It's just not that bad. Like, it's still happening and it's not that bad. And then suddenly like price goes up, and then the people who got like over their skis shorting get liquidated, and price goes up more. And then people are like, yeah, it's on. And they get a little confidence and they buy. And then the guy who wasn't that over his skis, he still gets liquidated. And then you end up with like a a massive short squeeze, and suddenly we're going the other direction. So definitely something
It's like I got to imagine
on my radar.
I got to imagine Celsius runs out of ETH to sell too. Like
Like, ETH
eventually,
has been getting dumped on so hard.
so bad.
Dude, Celsius has been dumping, right? And then like people were just dumping ETH for BTC because of the ETF, and it was just a better trade, right? So people were like, screw that. And then people were like, okay, even if like there is an ETF trade, like why would I buy ETH? Like I just buy like Grayscale ETH because there's like a built-in discount, and then all the money flows there instead of spot ETH.
Yeah.
While Celsius is dumping ETH, and now on top of all that, you have people front running the future Grayscale dump of ETH.
Dude, can I run like a I don't this might sound fucking so redacted, but I actually believe in this too, where it's like the Verizon trade actually applies to ETH as well here. ETH is yielding 3% or whatever on like like a liquid staking token.
Not meth.
Okay, yeah, meth is like double, 7.5 or whatever. But like imagine that you're getting 3% on like say ETH goes down to 1,700 or like just I don't even want to say that, but like wherever it goes down to, even at 2K, you're buying ETH and you're getting 3%. But then ETH goes up to 9K. Okay, that yield in ETH terms stays at 3%, but against your cost, you're actually getting 9% yield on your cost, and you can just hold that forever, capturing that 9% yield. And you actually like in like Nick land, you actually measure your yield this way, like in like Stockland, you actually measure the dividend against its current price. But in Nick land with real estate, that's how you measure your yield, is against your cost. And like when you buy ETH low and you still capture that yield, like now you're playing Nick game with something that can move in a very upward manner very quickly. And this is basically like why I can't get off of ETH. It's so fucking good.
Yeah, I think most of us believe we do a 10x from here, like throughout the course of our lifetimes. I don't think that's crazy. Like if you believe any, like that could happen this cycle if we go, some crazy shit happens. You just never know in crypto. It's certainly not my base case, but yeah, like if yield is able to, and this is a big if, like is able to kind of remain around 3%. And you do a 10x, then yeah, you're sitting on like 30% on your initial capital, which is
and like
cool.
imagine the me's of the world that's getting jacked up on like an 11% Verizon yield on my cost, and Nick is getting jacked up on his like 5% cash on cash return in real estate land, and you can do that same game in ETH, but you have like massive upside capital gains perspective. Like this beats everything from like a risk return, Sortino ratio, everything that I look at. ETH is the way.
Yeah, and you're not even factoring in like we've got like I actually want to caveat this with like we've got obviously Eigenlayer is a big thing right now, probably going to be the biggest airdrop of all time. Restaking is going to be a huge narrative. We're going to be seeing like really high yields presumably for that. I still don't really understand what I understand what restaking is, but I'm still like not, I feel like I'm not I feel like people are shilling me something and I'm not grasping like, wait, who are the people who are going to just be paying out for this ETH security? And then like, how many of them there have to be? How many tokens are they actually giving? Where it like actually is like a meaningful impact? Maybe the reality of it doesn't. But like for now, the narrative is, and the hope of it is so strong.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like from like an actual like yield enhancement in reality, it probably like underwhelms compared to what our expectations are. Because like the yield that we actually squeeze out from ETH security on like some other protocol is actually going to be like almost non-material, I'm imagining. I've seen like smart people tweet about this where it's like you're going to get like 10 basis points extra or something. And maybe that's the way.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the way it goes. But the narrative is going to be pretty fucking cool.
Seems plausible, for sure. But yeah, like assuming you believe all this shit about ETH, right? And like I checked Polymarket, and I think the odds of ETH ETF approval by May were like 51%. The last time I checked.
By May?
I was looking at ETH this morning in the 2100s, and I was like, is $2,100 ETH like sitting at weekly support after like a range breakout? Is that an appropriate price for a 51% chance of like an ETF like 3 or 4 months from now?
No,
That seems like a really good bet to me. I've been hurt a lot, obviously, but I'm ready to get hurt again.
Yeah, I'm with you. But like I would, in this moment, I'm like willing to just acquiesce to the candles, because like when something seems too good to be true, it usually is, and I'm like, okay, what am I missing here? Because like to get an entry this good just seems too good to be true for as long as we've had the opportunity.
That's how I felt this summer, and it wasn't too good to be true. It's just like so weird how you get to these points in this market where like the sentiment and the price becomes so freaking disconnected with the reality of what's happening. Like
Yeah, maybe that's a good point. Maybe that's the point where it's like these markets are still so small and inefficient that you can have like incredible deviations from like intrinsic value that we're not used to seeing anymore in more developed markets.
Yeah. I mean, when I look at the ETH chart, I'm just like, okay, you can buy here. If it goes back under here, yeah, it's probably over for a bit, and like we probably go back down into the 16s. Like, God willing, you know, there is a nuclear scenario where things go bad and we just take out all this liquidity and we go back down to like 1200 or something. Like once you go back into the range after like a failed breakout, it's not good. It's
Okay,
not good.
so let me just bring up a point related to that. So like, imagine if ETH goes into the 16s or whatever, 17s, 18s. Like, imagine it gets really fucking disgusting. Like, what a fucking time to buy. But also, I'm gonna be looking to buy.
Everybody will be terrified.
And yeah, no one's gonna want to buy. But also, like, can I talk about ETHE, the grayscale one? Because like, that's at a 16% discount today. That discount's gonna widen as like fear grows.
It might be. I'm considering whether it's like max width right now, to be honest. Like,
yeah, maybe now. But like, yeah,
at like maximum grayscale FUD.
Dude, ETHE is buying $1,800 ETH today.
So I've been thinking about this actually, because I do have this Bitcoin miner position, but like I'm also not really that bullish on Bitcoin relative to ETH. Like I think that the sort of structural like issues for Bitcoin are really bad right now. You got all this like structural selling. There's still like all this like uncertainty in the future with like the fee markets and everything. It just had like its peak moment. Like that was like the greatest moment in the history of Bitcoin. Like now what, right?
Right.
Meanwhile, you've got ETH, you've got the deflationary narrative, you've got the ETF narrative, you've got restaking coming on. You've got like peak Solana hype sort of waning, and people maybe are going to come back to the layer 2 thesis. We've got the big EIP coming out. Like, see all this stuff in the pipeline, and I'm like, wait a minute, like, should I just roll all my Bitcoin miners into grayscale calls, like ETH calls?
Well,
like
yeah. So unfortunately, they don't have options on the ETHE.
Oh, they don't?
No, not
That
until there's
kills me.
like a spot ETF.
Well, thank you for breaking my heart.
But I even think just buying ETHE
this is why I
common
keep you around.
is going to be fucking really nice.
Yeah, I should just roll all of the Bitcoin exposure in my TradFi account just into that.
Dude, I was thinking about this, and I was thinking about how into it you are, right? Like I see all this that you're doing, and I'm like, I'm awestruck often at like what you're seeing at like these different low time frame charts and everything, and I kind of feel like, to me, it's like it feels like we're on a boat. It feels like we're on a boat together, and on this boat, you're like lying on the ground, rubbing your face against the fucking asphalt of the boat, and I'm like sitting in a lawn chair, and I feel like just owning ETHE is just the easiest path. Like you're just sitting on the boat in a comfortable chair and you're just riding your way to
It's a good trade.
Profitability.
It should be like a easy, quote unquote. It should be easy double up, like, right? Because I think it's a crime that ETH is not like $3,600. Honestly, like I feel like every day I'm being trolled. You know, like Nasdaq
Yeah.
all time high, Bitcoin has run up. I'm like, does the market not see what is like sitting right in front of people's like faces right now? And then like I look at the setup like on the chart like this, right? And I'm just like, okay, like you don't have to be a freaking rocket scientist to look at this, right? You're like, okay, price can go here or it can go like there and then you're fucked and you get out. And it's here right now. You're like, okay, that's a pretty big distance this way. That's a lot. That's a big line. And that's a small line. Seems like a pretty good trade. And we've broken out. It's just holding week after week after week, right above, right on this level. I'm like, am I just being absolutely psyops right now? Or is this like not like the easiest long in the history of the world? Now, don't get me wrong. I think like because I did say that altcoins in total look really bad and this chart looks really, really fucking ugly. Like I do feel like there's a very high chance we just wipe all of these lows out, right? And just be very scary for people if we dip to like 1975 or something. Like, can you imagine that? Just mega nuke down there. But then you want to see like, again, the big recovery back above that line. And then that's like, if that happens,
Then it's shove.
I'm selling my dog. It's just everything is
Shove. You're shoving.
just shoving everything. But for now, I'm just still wondering, like, oh God, like I wonder if I should be buying more here right now. But yeah, like when I look at total, it looks kind of whack. Anyway, some other ways I'm considering playing ETH. Like we've talked about a lot of these. I actually rolled. I was talking to the Discord how I actually just put all of like my Arbitrum and OP exposure into other coins because I thought the Arbitrum and OP charts looked kind of bad. But like we've talked about Pendle a lot as like a restaking play.
Go gadget
This
Pendle.
is the ETH ratio. This thing is just up
What the fuck?
bigly. And then the dollar chart, like I caught like a nice 30%. Oh my God, this is a big move. Yeah. Like I made a similar like Monday range play with Pendle, right? Kind of got in on the Monday low here the other day. And that was a nice trade. So we took that from $2 and now we're at $2.56. So that's 30% move. I mean, it's looking good. And like Blur is teasing me and it broke my heart with a little fake out yesterday and it kind of came back into the range. But, you know, oftentimes price moves where you have like kind of this area that gives you a breakout and then you get one tap, two taps, double bottom, up only. So I'm hoping that's what happened here. And like I could kind of see this coinciding with like maybe like a Bitcoin range play. Again, it's like ties into what we were talking about. Some alts look good, some alts look bad. Like if I pull up like an OP chart, like this chart has looked so freaking AIDS to me for so long. Can I say that?
You can say that.
Am I getting canceled for that?
No, I'll allow it.
Like this, like, do you want to long this chart or do you want to long Pendle? Like this chart looks terrible.
God. Pendle is an unstoppable train.
You know? Do you want to long that chart or do you want to long like the thematic chart? You want to long that chart?
What about MNT?
No. Oh, good call because so we have Mantle and Manta, right?
Yeah.
Which confuses me. Like I'm actually in Manta as well. This gave like a really nice setup. I actually want to talk about this because this is giving me vibes of another play that I just entered into today. Sorry, guys, we buried the alpha like two hours into the damn podcast.
Ooh, there's an Easter egg for everybody
I know,
who's stuck
this is
around.
an Easter egg for everybody who's stuck around. So, Manta, you had this like very interesting setup that this is like one of the setups I take and I talk about a lot, right? So, we sort of like identify like a zone that gives like a really high time frame structure break. So price went down here, you know, in sort of like the 225 range, big move back up, and then what happens? We get a tap into the zone, and then a second tap. Don't take out the low, and then we rip, right? So I got in on this thing. I think I just like bought in this zone like around like 230. And like we ripped at 335, so really, really sick move. But the reason I want to bring this chart up is because there's another play I'm in right now. And again, past performance is no guarantee of future results. But
Okay, so okay, yeah, just keep going.
Ondo Finance.
Oh my God, this is the bringing treasury bills onto.
This is an RWA play.
On
Yeah,
chain.
brand new token. So fresh chart.
Oh, fresh chart.
Fresh chart, baby. Very similar setup to me that I see here that I took. Again, you got a zone here that gives you the big move up, and then you get one tap, two taps. We even maybe have a double bottom within the double bottom happening. So I took a long from here, and then I stacked some more limit bids even all the way down like below these lows, and I would be quick to get out of that. Like if I didn't see the good reaction, like I want to see like a strong wick out of there, not like price lingering. But I think this is kind of an interesting trade. Like huge area of consolidation, big move up, tap. We've got like a lot of other ETH stuff performing really, really well. Fresh chart.
Okay, I love that you took
Don't get wrecked on this, please. Don't blindly just copy trade me. But like I did this.
I love that you did this like within the
yeah,
last 24 hours. I love that you did this within the last 24 hours. That's awesome.
I did this literally like 30 minutes before I came here.
Okay, you've done this within the last like 4 hours. I love that. And the chart looks really good to you. I love that. I think the problem I have with it is like, who the fuck wants treasury bills on chain in an environment where price is actually going higher?
You're just thinking way too much, man.
It's
Just like that's
too
way
much.
too much thinking.
Too much.
Way too much thinking. I don't even know what like I don't even need to know. I don't even know what the coin does.
You don't have to know.
I have no idea.
You don't have to know.
I have no idea. Like there's certain this space is I don't want to come across as like flippant, but there's so much freaking information in this space, and such a high percentage of it is just absolute fucking bullshit that you have to be very selective. But like I know a lot about Ethereum. I know a lot about Bitcoin. I think I know like a pretty good amount about Solana, and like I understand like the sort of, you know, whole modular monolithic debate, you know, like I think that stuff matters. I can't get into the nuances of how like all 10,000 like shit coins on CoinGecko are, like, cause it's just like, it's just silly. And like the chart to me reflects what other people think about it, and I can just see what the market thinks and just buy when the market is bullish.
Okay, I can like,
but I don't want to like poo-poo that. I think it is fun to talk about this sometimes.
No,
Some people probably do care about like the.
Well, I can like left curve it with you, and by that I can just be like, oh, RWAs, like real world assets on chain. That narrative is compelling. Real world assets on chain is compelling. This is an example of real world assets that people love. Mm-hmm. Like one of the biggest asset classes on earth is treasury bills. Probably, maybe the biggest.
There are a lot of people who are smarter than me who think that, you know, very, 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 very large volumes of T-bills are going to come on chain. And
yeah,
I don't know. Ondo is probably a very tiny market cap, I'm guessing. Here, let's look it up. We'll look it up for the viewers. We won't leave them hanging like that. What is the market cap of Ondo? It is 320 million.
Okay.
2.2 billion fully diluted, but like I don't care about that in a bull market.
Actually, nobody cares about any of that.
Nobody cares.
Like
But
at the end of the day.
Yeah, like if you end up with, if you bring like $20 billion of T-bills on chain, you know, it's a tiny market cap, like, or if people even dream about the possibility of it, like these things can run so much. So
Right.
definitely don't size big on these coins. They just move a lot. Like your invalidation is like 22% lower. Like it's a pretty big move. Like to just really lose that whole zone. But the upside, you know, is pretty good. Anyway, what was the last thing you wanted? By the way, if anybody in the chat, I'm sorry, I've been not really paying attention.
Oh
to
no,
you
I
guys
wanted
today.
MNT, the layer
You want
2.
an MNT? Okay, we'll do
Mantle,
that. And
the layer
if anybody in the chat, Vibes wants you to know that ETH is trying to shake you out.
I will never be shaken. I will never be shaken out of ETH vibes.
Shake out Vibes. Yeah, if anybody has any requests, we'll try to get to one or two of them before we end. But you wanted to look at Mantle.
Yeah, this is a layer 2
That's the
ETH.
MNT. Yeah, that's right. MNT.
And this is the one that has the meth, you know, like the ETH with 7.5% yield.
Yeah, I don't own any of this right now, and I know I'm going to cry when I look at the chart because I know it's probably such an obvious buy. Oh, wow. Actually,
No, it's pulled back substantially.
chart does not look like what I thought it would. Ooh, this is an interesting spot. So weekly block, baby. Okay. This is certain. Like I mean, I can already tell this is a zone, or I would at least be like interested in taking a trade out of, because even if I don't think this is going to go to
Valhalla, for instance.
Valhalla, right? Like I still see like a gigantic wick here, and price likes to fill wicks, right? So if I just take like the 50% of the wick as a target, that's a big move.
Okay.
That's good.
So
62 to 75
on this
or
chart
so.
that you like pulled a wick, is that like a weekly? Is that what you were looking at?
Yeah, it's just like a weekly wick. And, you know, and then I'll zoom in to the daily and see what that looks like. Are there particular zones that are obvious on the daily? Like when I look at the daily, I'm basically like, okay, this zone here is basically an order block that hasn't been traded into yet. So that might be like an even more conservative target.
Okay, so with that conservative target, how far away from that target are we right now? Like, where are we at now?
I mean, even like the mid-range of the conservative target, that's a 15% move. Like, it's a pretty substantial move.
I'm not gonna trade that for 15%, but
Yeah, but like this is me like basically scalping.
yeah, you're
right?
poo-pooing the
Yeah, because if you get an entry, you know, near here, and you kind of set your risk there, and you take profit there, it's a 2-to-1 trade. Like, you don't have to be right very often on 2-to-1 trades to make money.
I like that. That's like it's still 2R, right? Is that the right terminology? 2R
You
on
can
conservative.
also like take half profit here, go to break even, and just like leave runners, and if it just runs, it runs. Like I like doing that a lot on these. Like I'm still in a TIA position from like $3 or something. I actually sold 75% of the position, which pains me now because I look at my current P&L is 4 times the P&L I initially took profit at, and that's with only 25% of the trade still on.
No, but I think that's actually good because, like, you know, you leave a runner. You always leave a runner, and like you never get mad when you make money. And now you have the runner.
Yeah, we like the runners. Anyway, yeah, Mantle is like an interesting zone to buy. Blindly buying here is sketchy because like you do have so much downside momentum, but it is in a zone that has like a high probability of holding. But sometimes when I see like all of that downside momentum, even though it's like kind of in the zone I want to buy, I want to wait for consolidation, maybe like a consolidation and then like a sweep in that zone is like that, you know, you're kind of increasing the probability you're right, but you're also increasing the probability that like, you know, made just V bottoms and just runs without you, and you're like, oh, I'm a moron. So, you know, different strokes for different folks.
And like, fuck, if Chris Berninski's right, then any of these trades are going to be fucked.
All right, Tunsky wants to check out Metis. We'll look at Metis. This is another thing I should have bought that I didn't buy. This will be our last chart of the night. Man, this is a long episode.
It just goes by so fast, man.
We still got most of the chat in there. You guys are troopers. You went through an entire seizure-inducing trading lesson. Okay. Man, this thing ran hard. Ugh. Ugh. What an obvious play. God, this is just December. Ran 500% from mid-December. Okay.
Is this Short Town? Maybe?
Okay. Is this Short Town? I don't know. I just pulled the chart up. I don't know. This area we're in is like a very, high time frame supply. You're definitely expecting a reaction out of that. It's one of those areas where it's probably a very interesting area to trade. Like, because of the area we're bouncing off of, it's not like a given to me that it makes new highs from here. This is like a pretty large area of consolidation. So I think like you could frame a trade where, you go from $80 up to this gap here, like $102, maybe even this gap here, like $111. Like that's a good move. That's a good move. Like you can capture like 40%.
Damn.
On that move, right? And you're just playing you're just assuming it's a dead cat bounce. You're just assuming it like kind of traps people thinking like this is like the support zone, and then we go lower. So it's an interesting play. I'm actually going to add it to my watch list.
Congrats, Tunsky. You added something to Steven's watch list.
But yeah, do you want to accumulate a position here for like forever? Yeah, like I don't hate it. It's not like a bad area. It's just rejecting off like a really big boy area. So it would shock me 0% if it just runs all, like we had this like huge move up just from nothing. It shocked me 0% to basically just run all of this liquidity in like the $70 range, trade back into the the 50s. That's a pretty nasty move from here. And again, like you look at all the momentum you have coming down. 1, 2 gaps, two very big gaps on the daily. So a little bit of knife catching and high probability that we just bounce off those gaps and then continue lower. So really like it as a trade setup. Going to look at it. I don't know what you're in the mood for, Tunsky. Probably. All right, Ollie, we'll do one more for you. Ollie wants Sui. I've been like buying Sui. I've actually been accumulating a decent sized Sui position because I put all these like what I thought were like kind of stink bids down at like $1.10 when it was $1.44. Then it hit them in like 3 days. Yeah, I don't know. Like I'm actually looking at this chart, wondering if I should sell. This is like one of those situations I worry about. You get like a huge run up, you get the bounce off the gap, but then maybe that's just a lower high. Sui looks really good. Like if we can get it in like the 80s, I would like that. I like the 80s for this long term. Like I'm in like a perps trade on it right now, but I might cut it just in context with kind of how I feel about the larger market, and I don't know. I haven't looked at this trade. I'm in the position and I haven't looked at the chart that much because it's like a small position, but yeah. This is kind of the zone here that you wanted to see it ideally run this high to give you an indication it wants to go higher. Like as of now, default assumption is probably that it just makes new lows, I think. But I think if we come back above 130 or so, maybe that could be the bottom, but I don't know. Like I would be greedy on this one. Maybe buy like a little bit if you don't own any, but like I think it would just suck to buy here and then eat like 30% in like the best case, especially when there's like such a high chance it goes back down here. So it's kind of my initial reaction looking at the chart. As always could be wrong.
All right, let's leave these people wanting more for next week.
Yeah, that's enough, guys. Like, God. I love that in my head. I thought I was going to do like a 1 hour podcast when I started the show.
Oh, you've been saying it for 2 years.
Yeah, I know. I gotta Next time you ask me advanced trading questions, I have like a buzzer, it's like a giant flag that unfurls. Like, no.
No, we're gonna get a lot of rewatches. That's good.
Yeah, a lot of rewatch value. Get those that YouTube engagement up. Anyway, thanks everybody for.
If you're still here, please like the video because I feel like this was some good shit.
I forgot to. Yeah, we get a good amount of people liking it. You guys are well trained. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think we had some good stuff in there today. Well, obviously, all of it won't come true, but I'm trying to be right like half the time with really, really good risk reward. I'm not trying to nail everything 100%.
I think that's true, and also some of these things were like fish, right? You like give some fish, like here's the trade, and then a lot of what we talked about was
educational content,
like teaching people how to fish. You taught me how to fish today in a lot of ways. I really like that, so that's cool.
Well, if you guys are still listening, do check out at least the video on Spotify. It's a little bit better with the video, especially when we pull up the charts. I know there's a little bit of a mixture in the audience who does and doesn't like the charts. We're going to do little charts, try to keep them a little more on the lighter side, but once in a while we may go down the rabbit hole. But also consider subscribing on YouTube and joining us live. We're doing this live currently 5 p.m. Pacific time on Thursdays if you want to hop in the chat and come vibe and hang with us. Much appreciated. And if you like the pod, tweet about it. Show it to a friend. We've actually been growing at a pretty good clip, which is nice to see. So some people are getting value here, and I'm lazy and tired trading, so I'm doing like no effort to promote this stupid thing or make clips, but it's still growing, which is nice.
Dude,
people must like the content.
We do no planning for the show, and we end up going for 2 hours. I can't even imagine.
Speak for yourself, brother.
No, I mean, we talk 2 hours before we go live.
The show's a surprise to you sometimes.
Yeah.
Just whip out like 15 charts. So anyway, thanks guys. We will see you back here next week with another action-packed episode. And until then, good luck in the markets and enjoy yourselves.
Later, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.